Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Shabti Box. A mysterious box was found in an ancient tomb. And who doesn't want to know what's in a mystery box? In the ancient Egyptian tomb of someone named Peruvian, researchers discovered the box with figures inside. Peruvian was a servant in the Place of Truth, sometime around 1279 BC. This box that researchers found is called a Shabti Box, and the figures are little people that will actually do work for you in the afterlife. There could be anywhere from 1 to 400 of these boxes in a single tomb during the New Kingdom period. The box almost looks like a miniature coffin, and these figurines would become full-fledged entities in the afterlife, your own little army of minions. They acted as substitutes for the deceased when they were called upon to do manual labor in the afterlife. If the gods wanted you to do something, anything at all, the deceased could use a spell from the Book of the Dead, and the Shabti figurines would do their work for them. In case you're interested in getting out of work and the beyond, it is spell number 6 from the Book of the Dead, which says more or less, "If I am to be summoned to do any work which must be done in the realm of the dead, you shall act for me, whether it be in the fields, on the banks, in the sand." It was the ultimate last effort by Egyptians to be totally free of chores, even in the afterlife. Number 9. Michelangelo's Secret Room. In Florence, Italy, a secret room was discovered inside the Basilica di San Lorenzo. This was at one point the official church of the powerful Medici family, the family that controlled almost all the finances in Florence. They were seriously powerful bankers who were like the mafia back in the days of the Renaissance. They governed all of Florence and Tuscany with blood and murder if necessary, wielding power over the region for centuries. But this story isn't just about the Medici family, it's about the great artist Michelangelo. He had been hired by the family to complete all kinds of fantastic works of art. Most historians agree Michelangelo betrayed the Medici family in 1527 by joining a revolt that drove them out of Florence. He played such a major role in the revolt that historians believe he had to go into hiding after and wasn't seen again for months. In 1975, a museum director at the Medici Chapels, a mausoleum designed by Michelangelo in 1520 inside the Basilica di San Lorenzo, discovered a trap door. The door led to a room which contained dozens of doodles and drawings all over the walls. It was immediately clear that these doodles were probably done by Michelangelo himself. This has never been confirmed, but most experts believe this was his secret drawing room. It's currently off limits to the public, with nobody except researchers with express permission allowed to even step foot inside. We don't know for sure if this was Michelangelo's private studio hidden down in the crypt, but it certainly looks like it. Number 8. Curm Sun Disc. The Curm Sun Disc became famous just a few years ago in 2014 after a young girl in Sweden brought it into school and showed it to her history teacher. It's a small disc with a diameter of almost 2 inches. It has a remarkable inscription about the Danish king Harald Bluetooth. The disc, which looks an awful lot like a coin, has all the characteristics of being made by the Byzantines. The relic is definitely a confusing one. From what we know, it was probably found as part of a Viking hoard discovered way back in 1841. Deep in the cellar crypt of a ruined church in the village of Pomerania in Poland, an abandoned Viking treasure was uncovered. This church was in the same place where the Viking stronghold of Jomsburg had been around the year 960. The opening to the crypt was accidentally found by a couple of kids who were playing games at a construction site. After it was found, the locals had the good sense to leave it there for safekeeping. But during World War II, the treasure was discovered and stolen. It wasn't seen again until 2014. It turned out that the little girl's great-grandfather had somehow acquired it and kept the artifact in his possession. Archaeologists now believe the Curm Sun Disc was created by a local priest sometime around the year 1050. It was likely to do with the death of Harald Bluetooth around the year 986. Harald died from his wounds, but nobody knows where he was buried. Legend has it he died at the old settlement of Jomsburg, but since they didn't have a Christian church, his body was probably placed in the closest grave, where this mysterious disc was found. The suggestion here is that Harold Bluetooth's body may be in the area, hiding somewhere deep in the dirt. Number 7. The Egypt Alien Rock. A stone was found in the Egyptian desert, but it's no ordinary rock. Scientists say the Egyptian rock came from outer space, and that it formed during a supernova explosion that happened outside our solar system. The stone, which is named Hypatia after the great female astronomer of ancient Egypt, was discovered in 1996. It was just sitting there in the Great Sand Sea in southwest Egypt. All these years later, a new scientific analysis seems to suggest the rock is the only sample of an alien material from beyond our solar system that got here through a supernova explosion. The research was done by a group of chemists at the University of Johannesburg. They now believe that a red giant got stuck inside of a dust cloud and collapsed into a white dwarf star. That star became part of a binary system, exploded much later, and gas atoms from that explosion became stuck in the same dust cloud. All these atoms eventually formed the rock Hypatia, and it was propelled through space 4.6 billion years ago. At some point, it landed in Egypt's desert. Number 6. Mysterious Peruvian mummy. Archaeologists in Peru were recently left baffled after they uncovered the mysterious remains of a mummy that had been stuck inside a tomb for 1,200 years. The remains of this individual were unearthed at the archaeological site of Cajamarquilla, near the capital of Lima. Researchers with the National University of San Marcos could date the mummy, and yet they know almost nothing about the circumstances of its burial. This is because it was entombed in an extraordinarily bizarre fashion. The mummy had its hands placed over its face, with its limbs bound up in rope, like it had been subjected to some kind of torture. According to the lead excavator on the project, Peter van Dalen Luna, this was probably a funerary practice of a pre-Inca civilization. It's just that nobody had ever seen anything like it before. The whole mummy was wrapped in ropes, almost as if it had been caught in a fishing net, but it had obviously been done on purpose, leaving the experts scratching their heads as to why. What's your theory of why the mummy was wrapped in rope? Let me know in the comments below. Number 5. The Wolfsuckled King. In 2020, an ancient tomb was unveiled to the world. Months of investigation led to the showcase of a mysterious burial that researchers believe may belong to the founder of Rome, Romulus. The tomb was discovered in Rome over 100 years ago, but over the last 10 decades, experts could never agree on who exactly was buried here. It had to be someone important from a long time ago, since the stone sarcophagus dates back to the 6th century BC. It could be anyone, especially since historians could never decide on whether Romulus ever even existed. According to Roman legend, he founded the great city after murdering his twin brother Remus. Both of them had been raised by a she-wolf, but had a falling out when they couldn't agree on where to build what would become the center of the European world for hundreds of years. Finally, it looks like we may have some answers. According to the Colosseum Archaeological Park, all evidence points to yes. Ancient sources speak of Romulus's tomb being in this exact spot. Plus, it looks as though a body was never buried inside the sarcophagus, but almost like it had been more of a place of memorial. That would match with the story of Romulus's death. Legend has it that he was ripped limb from limb by jealous senators and had his body parts scattered across the city. So in reality, there wouldn't even have been a body to bury. Number 4. Beer in China. 4,000 years ago, evolutionary leaps in Chinese culture may very well have been made thanks to beer. New research has identified a major development that probably helped motivate drastic civilizational change. The researchers, scientists from the US and China, claim that when the Chinese learned how to mass-produce beer, it had a profound impact on their people. The Chinese brewed a red rice beer that was tasty and had mind-altering effects. It had been considered somewhat sacred before brewing technology advanced enough that everyone could drink it. The scientists revealed through their study that the sudden mass production of alcohol led to improved trading activity, as well as informational exchanges between the primitive peoples in the area. A sudden excitement over fermented alcohol permeated all Neolithic societies, causing them to trade with one another, exchange wisdom, and move more quickly into a socially complex kingdom of humans. Beer would have been one of the major ingredients for large gatherings, which would have resulted in larger social networks, and everything just kind of fell into place. It was the production of this delicious red rice beer that brought the people together, and later led to the first ruling dynasty in China, founded by Yu the Great in the year 2070 BC. At least this is what the study showed. Of course, there were probably more variables involved than just beer. It's just that the beer was probably a huge part of unifying the region. Number 3. Ancient Greek Yearbook. Archaeologists discovered a mysterious marble slab covered in Greek writing. The slab, or tablet, was made 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece. Researchers discovered it 130 years ago and then brought it to the National Museum in Scotland. It then sat in the museum's collection until recently, when someone actually looked at it for the first time in over a century. It's been so long that nobody even knows where exactly this thing came from, or really how it ended up in the collection. But here's where things get really exciting. Peter Liddell from the University of Manchester says this was no ordinary tablet, but actually a yearbook from a graduating class of students. It was made in Athens as a class book, which lists the names of each of the young men who finished their civic training that year. There are 31 names on there, only a subset of the full class that had probably contained at least 100 people. At the very end of the inscription is a translation that says, "of Caesar." That's a reference to Emperor Claudius, who ruled the Roman Empire from the years 41 to 54 AD. Number 2. Ancient Swiss Army Knife. The Howie Sons port blade is a very unusual ancient artifact, something researchers call the stone Swiss Army knife. It's an early example of a composite tool that boasted many uses. And while stone tools weren't necessarily revolutionary for the time, this particular artifact was made 65,000 years ago. It was so impressive that the ancient people took excellent care of it, even using glue and adhesive to fix the stone blades to special handles. But there isn't just one example of this Stone Age tool. They've been found at 7 different sites across southern Africa. Each one is almost identical, showing that they were made using the same template. They could be used for all kinds of different hunting jobs, for cutting wood, harvesting plants, and working with everything from bone to feathers or skin. It's not the tool itself that's so mysterious. According to archaeologist Amy Way, she and the other researchers concluded that the similarities between the tools show information sharing. Human beings, some of the earliest people who ever lived, had a complex social network. This was how they all figured out how to make the same revolutionary tool across vast distances. The mystery is that we don't know how this social network functioned. Clearly, primitive humans interacted with each other from far away. But whether this was through envoys, nomadic wanderings, or more complex means, we just don't know. Number 1. The Egyptian Stargate. The temple to the solar god Ra at Abu Ghorab is a strange, mysterious place. Research and excavations were initially carried out here by German archaeologists between 1898 and 1901. It's next to the destroyed pyramid of Nusser and less than a mile from the pyramid complex of Abu Sir. But it's the construction of this temple that has people so interested, because there seems to be evidence that the place was once used as some kind of Stargate. The temple is made of stone walls with a grand obelisk that once stood 120 feet high on top of a squat pyramid. Most of all this stuff is destroyed, but archaeologists have easily recreated what it once would have looked like. On the eastern side of the temple was an altar, with the altar framed by 4 giant blocks, each one aimed at one of the 4 cardinal points. What's really interesting is that the altar once held a huge alabaster bowl that was used for an unknown purpose. From a mainstream perspective, this is simply a ruined temple thousands of years old. But there are some who believe that the Abu Ghorab Solar Temple is much older. Egyptologist Abdel Hakim Avian believes it was actually restored by the reigning pharaohs of the time, but was already old when they got here. He says that based on the geometric patterns, the unusual altars, and the age, this was probably a kind of Stargate that harnessed energy from a massive crystal that would have been balanced inside the giant bowl on the altar. But of course, this is just a theory. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching! Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you again soon for more archaeological videos. Bye!